We are the media. The right has built an impressive, on-point echo chamber. Liberals have no training, no focus, no back-and-forth partnerships between the different causes that make up our larger movement. Right now we're being played. Every day Trump says something offensive, and we react in a way that leaves swing voters feeling besieged by us instead of betrayed by him. This guide collects ideas from different sources about being more effective, and a great place to start is this graphic from Building a Movement to End the New Jim Crow. Break down who is reading your posts and think about your goals for each segment. For your friends and allies, are you inspiring them or burning them out? Are you firing up your opposition or encouraging them to trust you enough that they'd rather fight corruption with you than accept corruption in order to defeat you? How do you reach people who are quietly listening from the middle? On social media, outreach tends to trip us up. People are stressed. It's fair to feel outraged. Everyone needs time to express how they feel among friends. We all need hugs. So don't use up your community's attention by echoing the outrage of famous people. Spend more time listening and supporting stressed friends without echoing stress beyond your friend circle. Listening is the hard part, listening is the work. When you want to reach the middle, remember that we don't just live in a liberal or just in a conservative bubble, but we live in a bubble of people who are called to politics, while most potential voters live in a bubble of people who hate politics and think it's crazy. Many people reading this guide are going to be the people who thrive on being angry a lot of the time. Many of the people who hate politics are trying to avoid being angry all the time. They already know countless negatives about politicians, countless negatives about Trump. So if you're empowering and welcoming and you can be the sane person in a world where politics is crazy, you're likely to draw them and welcome them to your side. Let's talk about trolls for a minute. Politics online tends to cause us to abandon all hope. You're probably struggling with burnout online. We notice the loudest and most active opponents. The comments on the internet, whether it is politics or not, are terrible. And that is where we are spending our lives. But most voters are not the people we argue with. When we talk to conservatives online, it's like we're lawyers for the left arguing with lawyers for the right. You can't convince the opposing lawyers. Conservatives on social media will double down, but you should not lose hope that should not lose hope just because you can't convince the opposing lawyers. Instead, figure out who is quiet but listening. They're the jury. When Trump voters first start to change their minds, they likely won't agree with you. They will go quiet. If you're successful, you won't hear it, so don't lose hope. Gray out the trolls of your world. They are not your audience. Talk to people who are quiet. Especially listen to the people who are quiet. Be curious about what they are thinking, ask them questions. If people feel heard, they'll feel on your team. Once they're on your team, all the cognitive blocks that we're writing constant articles about will start to evaporate. So let's create a social media guide with specific suggestions to implement those broad ideas. So when Trump commits an outrage, the first step is generally to observe it. Share the stories of people who are directly impacted. Let your listeners and readers react to their story instead of reacting to your team identity. Or find messengers that your audience already trusts, so find conservatives who believe in global warming, for example, and have those messengers send the message rather than advocating for your team. Otherwise, outreach tends to work like this, where there's an outrage, and then most of what people are hearing is us screaming. If it makes your ego feel good, it's probably counterproductive on social media. And one of the suggestions for nonviolent communications, end with a request. I don't have a time machine, so I can't change someone's vote. If I want them to be on my team from here on, it's good to come up with a really simple, really easy to agree on thing that we could do together. Something we can say we agree on. So if we're going to imagine that we're one team in the face of an outrage, it's good to observe it, Call on everybody who's listening to you as if they agree with you on this particular, so they may not agree about Trump or politics or parties, but find the outrage, assume everyone agrees with you, and find something simple you can do, like write a letter together that you can do together. So now you're one team. Posts like that are extremely effective in a world that generally isn't effective. It's also good to take a look at George Lakoff's work and be conscious that your story has a frame and try and adjust your words where people are likely to agree with you to use a nurturing community frame. So using a word like environmental protections rather than regulations. So a great approach to social media, we're taking this action together to protect, so that's a nurturing frame, civil society, support our neighbors, and nurture the next generation. Thanks for taking a look at this guide. We're going to have a much more detailed version online, hoping that many people will help us improve it and keep improving it. A lot of specifics will be listed out, like little specific steps, as well as examples of social media that we think is effective at reaching swing voters and ineffective, as well as taking a look at what's good for within our movement. How do you empower people and get people to keep building their energy rather than getting burnt out? Thanks for coming along for the ride.